What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into another episode of the Johnny's Report, where today we will be discussing, is St. John's the team to beat in the Big East? Find out on this episode of the Johnny's Report. Reigning Big East champs is what St. John's will have attached to them heading into this 2025-2026 season. It still at times does not necessarily feel real because of what has transpired in the previous 25 seasons since St. John's has been given the belt. But for the first time in quite a long time, St. John's is no longer looked at as the team that is staring up at the top spots in the Big East standings. They are assumed to be one of the top teams once again in the Big East for good reasons. As you can see right there, or tipping off point number one, St. John's brings in the top transfer portal class according to 24/7. You're bringing in some big names like Ian Jackson, Dylan Mitchell, Oziah Sellers from Stanford, Bryce Hopkins from Providence, Josen Sannon from Arizona State, some role players like Dylan Darling and Hanjay Tamba as well, who should be welcoming into the fold. And oh, by the way, you're bringing back a player that could be challenging for the throne of Big East Player of the Year in Zuby Ejiofor. Now, with all that being said, is St. John's looked at as the team to beat? Are they the new gold standard of the Big East? Is UConn going to be looking at that St. John's game coming up no longer saying, yeah, this is the team with a little gleam in their eye. This is a program that is trying to get back to the way things were. We're going to try and put them down a peg. We're going to try and hold down Stores. This is still Stores South at MSG. Or will St. John say, no, we're on the same equal ground. We're at the same level. Or maybe we might be even better than you now. To those that probably think that, I'd like to be a little more balanced in my opinion between UConn and St. John's. I do agree. They are at equal footing. UConn's bringing in that Damari kid from Georgia, Malachi Smith as well from Dayton. So there is really a lot to like about this UConn team coming into the 2025-2026 season. You could say the same thing with Creighton as they bring over some highly prolific transfers, although maybe not from the top conferences. They do bring in two Iowa kids, Josh Dix and Owen Freeman, Austin Schwartz from Miami, Blake Harper, he's coming in from Howard, and Nick Graves, who's coming in from Charlotte. So, there's, I think, a lot to be left out for Creighton, and obviously we know that, the Pop Isaacs didn't work out at Creighton the way that I think a lot of people anticipated he would, coming over from Texas Tech and now going back to the Southwest to play at Texas A&M. So you look at those three teams, St. John's, Creighton, UConn. I think those all three of those teams will form the big three this year, which has kind of been the state of the Big East the last couple of years. If you are the top three teams in the conference, you are most likely going to the tournament. I mean, it has been I would say an unfortunate trend in the Big East because you'd like to get 5-6 teams in, but the last couple of years, and 5-6 teams by certainty getting into the tournament, not 5-6 teams and, the fifth and sixth team are kind of waiting to see if they'll get in, where they'll be when it comes to Selection Sunday. And I think that, unfortunately, you're really only getting three teams. I mean, if you remember a couple years ago, everyone was up in arms about why it was just UConn, Creighton, Marquette making up the field of 68 in the 24 March Madness. And then Last year, you ended up getting Xavier in, thank goodness, and UConn as well. But I think it was pretty much a foregone conclusion they were getting in on Selection Sunday, anyways. But you'd like to be able to say, okay, now we can get Villanova in the tournament. Maybe Providence will have a great year. Providence is looking like they're going to have a good team as well. But that's getting a little bit off topic here. Sticking on the top teams, I'm looking at it as a 2-horse race right now on August 1st, a 2-horse race for the title between St. John's and UConn. And I think that's kind of expected. I think we've been talking about that throughout the last couple seasons, that it's been building up to this. I think everyone would have liked it to have been last year, although UConn and the way that last season went, it's tough to go back to back to back as Big East champs. It's tough to go, obviously, back to back to back as national championships or back to back to back Final Four appearances. So that's where UConn fell into that slate of we just couldn't keep it up. But UConn, not only are they bringing in Damari and Malachi Smith, you're looking at a team that's bringing back a very, very solid team. And oh, by the way, potentially, I would say for, in my opinion, my money, the best player in all of college basketball and maybe the best recruit we have seen UConn get in potentially some time, with Braylon Mullins, a 5-star recruit coming in from Greenfield, Indiana, someone that is listed as the 12th player overall nationally, the second at his position, and the number one, of course, in the state. So they're bringing not only him in, they're bringing in, and I don't want to botch his name here, so excuse me if I do, Eric Rebby from Potomac, Maryland, a Bullis School kid. Obviously, someone 4-star, 36th ranked recruit nationally, someone that I would say is kind of, I don't want to say a shocker, but to be able to go into the state of Maryland, pull a kid out, not that it's not, I mean, you see teams like UConn, programs like UConn do it all the time, but to be able to go in and nab that kid away from Maryland, nab that kid away from Kevin Willard, is a big deal. And I mean, Maryland was a huge recruiting plant for even Villanova. You look at that UConn team, you look at what has the potential to come together. You look at St. John's, you look at the potential that they have as well to come together. It's a very exciting, it's very intriguing, and it's something that I got to tell you is all of the more reasons as to why St. John's needs to keep this up. They need to continue to be in this conversation. Now, doing it year in and year out will be difficult, but to be able to be a program like a Creighton or like a Marquette or even like, yeah, let's go there, Creighton or Marquette, where you're in and around that upper echelons in that conversation is obviously something that St. John's needs to covet, needs to hold to a high standard for not only this year, but for years to come. And hopefully with Rick Pitino, with what he has implemented, I'm going to keep talking about it on this podcast. It's going to continue to be the namesake. And this is not just going to be a little blip on the radar where 2 or 3 years St. John's was looked at as the team to beat in the Big East, was looked at as among the best teams in the Big East. You know, these previous 2 seasons, assuming this upcoming year is as good or greater as last season, hopefully that's not just a one-time thing, and hopefully that's things to come. But thanks everyone for tuning into this episode. Follow us on Twitter at the Johnny's Report, as well at Big East Energy. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll have more stuff coming out as we're inching closer and closer to the start of the 2025-2026 college basketball season. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.